Hi, everybody, and welcome. How are you? I hope everybody is doing fine. The Friday edition of Moohead Radio is just beginning. So, how are you? I'm doing all right, and I'm all by myself. No panelists today. Brian is trying mightily, but there's something obviously wrong with his computer. It could be operator error, but I don't know. It's hard to say because he hasn't had problems in the past. But as soon as he joins us, you'll know his incessant ranting and screaming. And you know that Key is here, so you know darn well that she was expecting Brian to be here. So we got news to start out the program. You know, when you get breaking news right before the show, you got to start with the lead story. Sheldon Richardson is an ex-Cleveland Brown. The Browns have released him.
Yeah, that was a big shock. Hey, I fixed it.
Hey, there you go.
Bitch.
What was wrong with it?
All right. I don't know. It's for some reason I had the mute setting on.
That will do it every time. The Browns had terminated the contract of Sheldon Richardson, who had a cap hit of $13.6 million this year. His dead cap space is only $1.6 million, meaning the Browns are about to save somewhere in the range of $12 million.
And I guess we know we're picking at 26 now. Well, because the only one on the roster, a starter quality defensive tackle is Billings.
Yeah, I mean, it gives us a clue. And the question, you know, with that amount of money and having signed Jadeveon Clowney, they were not going to, you know, put that much money into Sheldon Richardson. And it's really kind of a sad story because he lasted 2 years here. You know, he was drafted number 13 in 2013. So he's about, 8 years into his career. The Browns had under $11 million in cap space after signing Clowney to a 1-year deal worth about $8 million on that, $2 million in incentives. And Clowney, I guess, counts as only $3.9 million against the cap. This is for all you analytics people who love dollars and cents. I was in business for too long. I'm Jewish, and I'm not even that interested in the business side of football. The Browns still running short on space because they need to pay their rookie pool about $9 million. That means the business side of football, raises its ugly head, a reality in the business. Richardson had signed a 3-year deal with the Browns that was worth $37 million, including 21 guaranteed. He was due this year $11.9 million in base salary and $100,000 in a workout bonus. Basically, our two interior linemen, starting tackles, now gone. Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi, who signed on as an unrestricted agent with the Cincinnati Bengals after the Browns let him walk. Richardson, in essence, became expendable because we're, 10-year veteran Malik Jackson is on a 1-year deal. And yeah, we're going to have to beef up at the defensive tackle position. And this is all, then you have Andrew Billings as well. He opted out because of COVID, because of an asthmatic condition that he has, something that probably Myles Garrett has too. So the Browns, really, all they have is Jordan Elliot, who they like at defensive tackle. He was the 3rd-round pick out of Mizzou last year. The 26th pick in the 1st round, one tackle that is expected to be chosen in the 1st round is, of course, Alabama, Christian Barmore. Whether the Browns go that direction, they're going to need to do something to strengthen their interior line just because of who we play against. We can't afford to give up easy run yardage if we're beefing up our secondary. But that's really what today's show is all about, is with the signing of Jadeveon Clowney. What does it tell us? What, and this is all in all another brick in the wall. Another.
And they picked up the option of Porter Gustin, by the way.
Porter Gustin. There were 2 guys who got picked up, actually. Sheldon Day, a defensive tackle, which is interesting in and of itself because this was released before the release of Sheldon Richardson. Day finished the 2020 season on the Browns practice squad. He was drafted by the Jaguars in the 4th round, 103rd overall, the 2016 draft. He's seen action in 60 games in his career with the Jags, with San Francisco, and the Indianapolis Colts. He's had all of 55 tackles, 39 solos, 6 sacks, and 5 pass breakups. In 4 games played last year, he collected 2 tackles and a pass defense. So he is not a guy who he's depth.
Rotational.
Say what?
Rotational.
Yeah, that's right. He's depth. Then you have Stephen Carlson, who was re-signed by the Browns as well as tight end. He's tight end. And again, tight ends go down with injuries, and he is our protection. He knows the scheme. He blocks. Not a great pass receiver as far as getting downfield. He's not real quick, but he does block, and that is something that obviously Kevin Stefanski admires in players. Porter Gustin is strictly a motor guy, and if there was ever anyone who was out on the field to spell people, it would be Porter Gustin, because you're going to get 100% of what he's got. He's not real athletic, and he's not real technique oriented, but he's got a big motor, and the Browns liked him and brought him back. So that's another guy that we'll be looking at as a depth guy with our defense. So that's that. Right now, if you're looking at the Browns defensive depth chart, it's interesting because behind Garrett Miles at the left defensive end is Joe Jackson and then Cameron Malvo. The left defensive tackle was Sheldon Richardson, who was number 1 on the depth chart. Now Elliot Jordan moves up and Sheldon Day move up. And we'll see, because the right defensive tackle, Andrew Billings and Malik Jackson. So a left defensive tackle might be in order. All right. If you're looking
and even at 26, they can still get a very highly rated one because of other team needs.
Well, that's going to be a position. Defensive tackle is going to be available on the board. I mean, I started, and I'll tell you in a minute what I was doing was I'm eliminating positions summarily based upon what's available and what's not available. But to continue down the depth chart, you have Jadeveon Clowney now as your right defensive end. You have Tack McKinley listed as behind him on the depth chart, and then Gustin Porter, Porter Gustin, who I'm dyslexic, who is really third line, but can be moved around and can spell people. Your Sam backer is Taki with, and then you have the Malcolm Smith story. What has gone on with Malcolm Smith?
I'm not exactly sure. As far as I know, he's still going to be on the roster for 2021.
That's my understanding too, that he was the veteran.
I think he was supposed to, as far as I know, he's supposed to be platooned with the guy from Indianapolis.
Well, no, because the middle linebacker, Anthony Walker, is first on the depth chart in the middle linebacker position ahead of Mac Wilson. And those are your 2 middle linebackers. Your Sams are Taki and Malcolm Smith, and then Curtis Weaver, the little scene Curtis Weaver. Your linebackers, you got Jacob Phillips, and then Elijah Lee, and then George Obinna. So right now, I don't know.
Where's Phillips?
Phillips is again the WLB. We have a Sam backer, a middle linebacker, and one wide linebacker is Jacob Phillips. He's the top guy, but there's nothing behind him at all that can play. And that's a little bit troublesome because he missed time last year.
Porter Wanger, Amsterdam, your dick.
Yeah. So then, on top of that, you have Denzel Ward at the left cornerback position. You have Stewart Jr., MJ Stewart, and then Brian Allen. I mean, and then AJ Green. So your cornerback, you got one good one there. Your strong safety, of course, is Johnson III. And behind him is Ronnie Harrison. And I really think Ronnie Harrison is a backup player. He's a damn good backup player, and we can feel good about him, but he's not a starting player. Behind Ronnie Harrison is Sheldrick Redwine, and then Montrell Meander. And, the question about Redwine is whether he's going to even make the team. At free safety, you've got Delpit, who we're all praying turns out to be a player. Then you have Javonte Moffett and Elijah Benton. And again, I was looking at the free safety position as the possible kind of what you move into maybe in your second round pick. We'll talk about that in a minute. Your right cornerback is Greedy Williams and Robert Jackson. And Robert Jackson certainly had his bumps and bruises. And but now Troy Hill is really the other cornerback in the scheme of things. So, what it tells me, by getting who we got and getting a combo defensive end, run stopper, and pass rusher, you're not going to see the Browns in the first round go after somebody like Russo or somebody like that. That's gone, done, and finished. That's not going to happen. Clowney is the guy, and it opens up opportunities in other positions. And to tell you the truth, I started looking at the safety position because I think we're weak there. And that's not a rap against Johnson III, and it's fear that Delpit may not be ready to roll or may not be outstanding. Let's put it that way. And the problem with the free safety situation is that there aren't realistically much in the way of people in that position. The top safety in the draft is Travon Morig from TCU. Now, he is the only safety that is predicted to go in the first round and will be a late first round pick. So, it's not what you call a sexy first round pick if the Browns went with Travon Morig, but it's if you're looking strictly at the roster right now, we've.
But I think we could live. I think the Browns could live with solid at that position.
Back your mic off a little. You're really distorting. Just less volume.
All right. Is that better?
I think so.
All right. So as I was saying, I think the Browns can make do with solid. They don't have to go out and have draft Ronnie Lott. They can live with Anthony Newman. they can live with a Felix Wright. They can get by with that and still have a really solid defense.
I mean, if you're looking at the number below Morig, there's Jamar Johnson out of Indiana, and Indiana had a good year this last year. He's only a 1-year starter at Indiana, and you remember he was the guy who picked off Justin Fields twice against Ohio State. But he's a guy who goes after the ball. But the more I research Jamar Johnson, he's just an average athlete, and you can't choose an average athlete with a first or second round pick, I don't think, when you're a team that has aspirations to go into the playoffs and further. Elijah Molden from Washington, he's not even a prototype safety. He's only 5'10" and 190 pounds, and he's going to wind up probably somewhere as a backup coverage guy in a cornerback slot. There's just not safeties available in this draft. And what's there, if you're going to take a chance at something, you do something with somebody who's athletic. Try to catch lightning in a bottle is probably your best strategy there, and wait until like the 4th, 5th round and see who's hanging around. So I don't see any secondary picks, cornerback or safety. The only things.
Well, but if you look at like that kid for that JOK guy for Notre Dame, he's a guy who can play enough of the in between strong safety and linebacker role to where you can do some different things, especially if you've got a rotation of 3 safeties.
Yeah, the problem with that, though, is you've got a guy who's technically listed as a defensive end in Tack McKinley, who also is kind of a combo guy, depending on what what kind of attack you're fielding out there defensively. I don't know I can't tell you what Joe Woods is going to do here. As far as, the standard kind of feeling is you'd have 3 cornerbacks and you would have 2 safeties. But one of the safety positions is in good hands. The other is a scary mess because the people who played last year had no idea what they were doing back there. And some of them are returning. And that is not confidence inspiring, giving up big plays because, and I'm reading about a lot of these guys who, there's one guy from, I want to say UCF, I want to say, who named Richie Grant, and he's the number 4 safety listed, but UCF gave up more busted coverage safety touchdowns than any other school last year. It was an absolute abomination for that football program. And, good against the run, but busted coverages left and right. And it happened a lot, not only in deep coverage, but, in the near at the end zone. There were just a series of things, and they were in single coverage formations that he just misread situations or just flat out busted. And nobody of mammoth speed or big size to be a big punishing hitter, I mean, when the number 5 guy is 5'8" and 179 pounds, my God, that's not as big as Felix Wright, folks. No. So I'm not seeing safety being the way that the Browns would go. I just don't see that happening. So, now, linebacker, defensive tackle, I could see. And, at 26, you should be able to get one of the top interior linemen. Again, not a sexy pick. All right. What do you think? What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I could definitely see them taking some super stud defensive tackle who may have had. At that point, you can look at the 2nd round grades and maybe move a defensive tackle up to that, who's probably number 5 or 6, or if you can't get 1, 2, or 3, you could definitely get 5 or 6 from that category in that spot.
Well, Christian Barmore from Alabama is the top guy. All right. Pass rushing.
Well, of course he's from fucking Alabama.
Well, but, I mean, 2 seasons in Alabama, he had an 88.1 pass rushing grade and a 91.5 in 2020. So this guy statistically does very well. He doesn't bring it every game, though. The feeling is, and this is something that has been questioned with athletes in the past. And, the poster child for me was Andre Drummond in basketball, somebody who just never brought it on a daily basis. And Barmore takes plays off. And that's something that, they get a whiff of on film. The Browns and Stefanski and the front office ain't going to go for that. Next is Aleem Mcneil from NC State. He is a nose tackle. Well, we're playing a 4-3 or a 4-2-5. We don't really have a nose tackle. So that is not, that's not where we're going to be headed. Marvin Wilson from Florida State, not the penitentiary, the college.
Free Shoes University, come on down.
And he's the hardest guy of the bunch really to evaluate. He came back to school in 2020 hoping that he was going to have a big increase in his draft stock, and that he would have been an early day 2 pick at worst last year. He is obviously got some talent, but is the unknown comic of the bunch. He's not a high level athlete, and it depends what the Browns are looking for as far as a defensive tackle, a mauler. I think you want somebody who's going to take up a lot of space and just shut the middle down. I mean, I don't, I would say athletic is less important than strong and getting a push back into the backfield, because this is too often we give up 4th and whatever because either our coverage was bad or our line was not penetrating.
Yeah, and the one play that goes over and over in my head is the one against the Raiders when Ogunjobi gets totally decleated 2 feet in the air and gets shoved backwards 3 yards by the guard.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Browns' problem historically has been not controlling and dominating the line of scrimmage. Everybody makes a big deal about pass rush. I get that. But when you're playing in the AFC North, right now, I mean, I saw that James Conner is gone from Pittsburgh. He signed, I want to say, with Atlanta. Is that Arizona? Is where he went.
He's probably coming down here.
Yeah. And, they need a running back. Pittsburgh has to get with their top pick. Everyone's saying, oh, they're going to go after Collins and they're going to get the linebacker again, but they need a running back in a big, bad way. They also need offensive linemen. But you got to have a running back to make it in the AFC North. This looks like a real down year for the Steelers because they got too many needs, not enough salary cap, and not enough time to make this shit up just in a draft. We've been there so many times ourselves. I don't know. I'm for the Browns, you got to have somebody stout in the middle. And I don't know where that's going to come from, because Ogunjobi had the capacity, but seemingly again would disappear. And I thought Sheldon Richardson did a nice enough job in Cleveland, but not $13 million worth, No,
and if they do, if for whatever reason they do decide to bring him back, it will be at a much reduced number for 1 year, because that's the way that they've been working the contracts.
Well, and that's, this is the way it works. You want to stay in the league, you stay in the league. And this is the story of Rashard Higgins' life, because once you're out of the league, if you remain and stick to your guns, the league is bigger than the individual. And if you're not going to get in, you're going to take an entire season off. You're forgotten. You're a year older. And it isn't like, oh, I rested my body and I'm healthy. It's like people will forget who in the hell you are. I've seen people go from being nothing, having a big year, and getting a big payday. You want to keep playing. You don't want a season off. All the talk about Jadeveon Clowney signing with the Browns, they're asking him questions. And, one of the first questions, of course, was Mary Kay Cabbagehead, who threw at him, so what's so different this year as opposed to last year when the Browns offered you more money than anyone else? And fair enough question, I suppose. And he did kind of jerk when she said it. But I wish players would be.
He came back with a really good answer, though. They winning now.
Yeah,
That's the difference. They went from a dog shit team to a 12-win team.
But
and a playoff team.
I would like to think that everybody is smart enough to realize, and I know some fans are pretty stupid, but I would think that a player shouldn't have to explain the career ramifications of holding out for a multi-year deal that didn't really materialize and ending up with a 1-year, $13 million deal in Houston, playing in a, what it has historically been a defensively minded organization. But no player wants to be on the prove it deal, because the 1-year prove it deal, somebody runs in your leg and takes your knee out, your career is damn near over. You never get a chance to prove yourself even. There are some guys who never even get to the 1-year prove it deal. They're just out of the league. You're one step away from the pit of despair when you get to the point where Jadeveon Clowney was, going from the number 1 overall pick in the draft to just bouncing from team to team. He was holding out, hoping his name, his status would give him a multi-year deal, and it didn't come to pass. So he ended up going with a team that, again, the critics are saying, oh, they're going to go deep into the playoffs. And so he went where he thought he could make a big impact based upon the scheme that they played. But, the thing about 1-year deals, man, you tear a meniscus, man, you're gone for the back end of the season, and it's just going to put another question mark next to your name. The reason he took the gig with the Browns is that they offered it to him, and nobody else was offering him dick. And, Mary Kay Cabbagehead shouldn't be asking silly questions. Players should be able to give honest answers and say, this is my career. This is my avocation. This is what I do for a living, man. This is what supports me, is what supports my family. And I'm no different than you. And if some other newspaper or online organization came at you with 3 times as much money, you'd be gone from where you are. So, my job is no different.
Or you would turn down other lower paying offers.
Right. I mean, it's, so he wanted to join a winning team. That's a nice spin. That's for the agent. And he decided that they would say, the fact of the matter is, this is his chance to play for a team that is improving its secondary, and as such can give him the opportunity. And he did kind of chuckle when he said, hey, with Miles out there, maybe I'll actually get single teamed, because he's a perpetual double teamed guy. So his stats might be enhanced just because that if you had to put one guy on a defensive end, it would be on Clowney with his history as opposed to Myles Garrett.
Well, and as I told somebody else, you can't don't look at sack numbers, look at tackles for loss, because he's going to be zeroing in on running backs and running quarterbacks and getting them down to the ground. So he may not have 84 goddamn sacks in 2021, but what he might have is 10 or 12 tackles for loss. That means 3rd and long for the opposing offense, or getting them off the field on a 3rd down.
I am looking something up because I'm forgetting a guy's name, and it's okay, good. The whole notion of the economics of football, which, you know, our front office will be heralded as geniuses, based on, oh, look at who we're getting, or look at the free agents we've attracted and how we've upgraded our secondary, and it's all done with economics in mind every bit as much as it is the skill level of the players. In Major League Baseball, the name I was looking for was Yonder Alonso, who played for the Mariners, came to the Indians. Alonso was a guy who was a solid 275 hitter, but the paydays were year to year because he was a vagabond. He was going to be going from team to team to team. And the way you get money in Major League Baseball is to hit home runs. And this whole notion of changing the entry or the exit point of the swing and the arc of your swing to allow more loft on the ball, backspin on the ball, leading to more home runs. You know, guys who hit for 250 and strike out out of every 4 times at bat, if they can produce 90 to 100 runs batted in and hit 25 to 30 home runs, their value goes through the roof. I mean, don't think for a minute that Francisco Lindor, based on his cat-like reflexes, was going to make $341 million. It doesn't work that way. It's those numbers, like 30 home runs, that get, at the shortstop position when teams already have guys who are hitting 40 in the outfield or at third base. That's enticing. Jadeveon Clowney's 1-year stay in Cleveland is hopefully for him that his sack total goes back up. He had no sacks. His first 2 years, he was like at 8.5 sacks, and he never evolved beyond that because of injury. If he could be single team, that he can get his sack numbers up, that's what's going to bring the offer that he and his agent are looking for. It has nothing to do with the Browns being a winning team. It has more to do with he could be one-on-one with a man and get to the quarterback, and those stats shine. And the same thing is true with Tack McKinley, who had 2 good years starting out and then kind of fell off. These guys who are hanging in there, how much money they earn is really based upon their production in the area that is most desired. And for a defensive end, that's quarterback sacks. For a designated hitter or a first baseman, it's power statistics. And what happened to Yonder Alonso is it actually kind of worked. To put this, and I want to look up his statistics because he is a good illustration of what I'm trying to talk about. You look at his stats, all right, and you look at who he was and who he kind of made himself into. He starts out in 2010 just coming into the league, but he really starts to play in more games in 2012, right? And he hits 9 home runs and drives in 62 runs, and he hits a respectable 273. The following year, he only gets 97 games because he's in San Diego, which at the time was a place where people died. And he hit all of 6 and 7 home runs in back-to-back years, 2013 and 2014, and continued to hit around a 280 average. In 2015, finally, he had his final year with San Diego, and it's the same story. 5 home runs, 31 runs batted in, hitting a 282. Then he went to Oakland, and it's the same story. Basically 7 home runs, and he hits 253. So he decides to try to make a change. and based on economics. And he comes to the Indians in 2018, and he hits 23 home runs and drives in 83 runs. He hits a 250, which is lower, and he strikes out more. However, in 2019, he is no longer. Okay, he's playing with. He converts the 23 home runs into moving to Colorado, which seemed like a really good move because the Rockies' air is thin, and he could hit more home runs there. It didn't turn out that way. He only had 73 at bats with the team, and then he got traded to the White Sox, and basically he hit 10 home runs with 37 runs batted in and hit a 199. And this is how it goes, folks. It's a hit or miss world. You strike while the iron's hot. And I don't think that's hard for anyone to understand. Jadeveon Clowney is where he is because he wants his value to be greater next year. So he'll be the one putting the fire to the feet of the Browns and other organizations because they need his pass rushing skills. So that's so that nobody misinterprets what it all means. The other thing I want to talk about is this whole Justin Fields thing, and he's the de rigueur guy of the year as far as declining draft value. And I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I watched Ohio State play a number of games this year, and yes, he has had some flops in big games. Justin Fields also played, a really good game this past year in getting to the finals, and then just getting ripped by a better team. I mean, obviously they were not as good a team, but the question about Justin Fields, they like him because he has the 4.4 speed and that he can throw the ball on the run. But now all of a sudden there's some nervousness about the simplicity of Ohio State's offense and whether he has the ability to read progressions. And now they have him down to number 7, and some people are saying that he could drop to 20. Do you believe it?
No, I don't believe that for a second because there's too many teams inside the top 12 that need a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, but dropping to 7 when you're looking at,
and if you're the New York Jets, if you don't draft him or Wilson, you should be just dragged out into the streets and shot.
Yeah, I mean, but even the BYU quarterback had his share. I mean, he's got an arm, but that anymore doesn't mean everything. He lost.
Well, but he can also move.
Yeah, but they lost one game this year, and it was, oh my God, it was not to a good team. All right, and you immediately question, this is not a big football program, and who is he playing against? And somebody in the chat room tell me who it was that the BYU quarterback lost to, because that, but they love his.
Was it? Did they lose to Coastal Carolina?
That's right. It was correct. Yes. Yep. And
who was actually, and they were actually ranked in the top 20.
Yeah, but once you get below a certain number, you could flip a coin. I guess. The quarterbacks, I mean, and
Coastal Carolina also, I think, went undefeated this year, or they lost in the bowl game or something.
Yeah, I would have thought personally that the Alabama quarterback is the guy who would drop.
Well, Mac Jones was always considered the last of those guys. Because they look at A.J. McCarron, they look at Tua. They look at what the hell is the other asshole's name?
Joe Namath.
No. But he was drafted, I think, to Minnesota or somebody. Anyway, he never rose above the third string.
Yeah, the history hasn't been good, and not only that. I mean, I was reading a story that Alabama just signed a kid. The kid signed his intent to go to Alabama in his junior year. He had gotten the offer in 8th grade. 8th fucking grade from Alabama. Now, the fact of the matter is that, the recruitment of these athletes going to that school, I mean, a lot of quarterbacks would look good. Mac Jones is just one more guy. And all the talk about Trevor Lawrence, I shouldn't say anything because I get myself in trouble when I say things, because I have no crystal ball. But Trevor Lawrence going to the Jaguars.
No, having crystals in your balls is a totally different problem.
I'm like, I don't know about this. I mean, he'll get the praises that Gardner Minshew got if he has a couple of good games, but they can't put anything together in that town. And I watched him play, and I'll be honest with you, he's got long hair. He kind of looks like he could be a professional wrestler. And honestly, he isn't blazing fast like Lamar Jackson is.
Well, come on. I mean, he's like, that's like the 0.1% of all fucking athletes are that fast.
I get that. But I mean, what is he? I mean, they said he has a really good arm. But I watched a lot of film, and I question his ability to fit the ball into the necessary window, the accuracy that is required in the NFL, especially with how fast.
Well, and again, if you go back to the Ohio State game, he got outplayed by Justin Fields.
Yes,
and especially glaring when after Justin Fields got speared in the back on that play, he came back and still fit the ball inside a bucket. A Home Depot bucket was the only place to put that football, and Justin Fields did it on a routine basis. So, will he be great? I don't know.
It's interesting, a guy like Fields, he started at Georgia behind a guy named Jake Fromm. You probably remember him from, didn't go anywhere. And he was predominantly a runner back then. But
he's done. Ryan Day's done a lot of work with him and gotten him to at least this point. And unlike Dwayne Haskins, he's had 2 seasons where he was the starting quarterback. He got him into the playoffs and showed some dazzling brilliance.
If you question Crimson Tide quarterbacks, you're going to question Ohio State quarterbacks. All right. I mean, who's come out and, besides trying to become, wide receivers like Braxton Miller, who are we talking about that has come out of Ohio State really at all to become a solid professional quarterback? Now, I'll say this.
Kent Graham.
Say again?
Kent Graham. He had a long career.
Yeah, but I mean, that's nothing. I mean, considering how prolific the program is.
Brian Hoying went to the Rams, and then he got his ass ran over like Pat Hayden did with the Rams. So he was basically done.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State's a factory for cornerbacks,
And wide receivers and running backs.
That's right. I mean,
offensive linemen.
That's right.
Linebackers. Anything but the quarterback. And even JT Barrett really didn't get much of a shot with with the Saints.
No, but I mean, I looked at JT Barrett during the course of the season. I mean,
Troy Smith was drafted by the Ravens and sat on the fucking bench the whole time.
They really questioned his heart. There are questions about that. I really, I don't know. I'm just saying that if you question one program, you got to question another program. And why are they saying then that Justin Fields? I mean, what has happened that would affect his draft value this much? There
was the funny little floating of questioning his heart by was it Orlovsky or one of those assholes? And so, debunking it hasn't really done anything to help him overcome that. So the national perception now is, well, he really doesn't have his heart into it. And it's like, wait a minute. He spends more time studying film than he does in class. He's worked on his mechanics. He's worked on his game. What the fuck else do you want him to do?
Well, I mean, there's nothing else he can do.
And he plays hurt on multiple occasions. He got hurt in the Michigan game. He gets hurt in the fucking
look at how every year we say, oh, there's this quarterback and this quarterback and this quarterback, and how many really come out as the guy who is going to lead his team. Nobody thought that Josh Allen was going to become, coming out of Wyoming. Nobody thought that he was going to be really pushing toward the Super Bowl. It's hard,
but I knew that he would be a really good quarterback if he got into in the right system. He is blossoming.
Well, but this last year was a quantum leap, and part of
none of those 2018 quarterbacks, other than Baker Mayfield, could survive the Cleveland situation. He's the only one with the mental makeup to do that.
Well, I mean, the Josh Allen thing, the guy was a 50% completion guy in college, massive arm, really kind of like the relief pitcher who doesn't have command. And all of a sudden I likened him more to like Randy Johnson. Yeah, well, yeah, or Derek Anderson.
A big, high speed. He'll walk a lot of hitters, but he'll also strike out a fuck lot of hitters too.
So. Well, but 70% completion. Where did that come from? And will it continue? I don't know. But
they're maintaining the offensive staff, so there's a very good chance that he could do that.
Well, I would be shocked. I would be shocked to see him have a year as good as he had last year. And the reason I'm talking, kind of switching over into this, is because the NFL predicted over-under for team wins. And, you start looking at who's who here. And the Buffalo Bills are at an over-under of 10.5, and they're being predicted over. It means they're going to win 11 or more games. But, I'm always wary about outlier statistics. I always wonder when a guy has won.
Well, and they're also looking at the fact that the Patriots are a down team. So without them being dominant, they're going to be able to beat the Jets. They're going to be able to beat they're already going to have 4 division wins and possibly 5 division wins if they split with even if they split with the Dolphins. So,
yeah, I get it, but I'm saying if they're not going to get 11 plus wins if Josh Allen reverts back to being a 57% quarterback guy who throws interceptions. And I've seen this before where pitchers will, it was like Lenny Barker for the Indians. I know I'm going way back in history. He of the perfect game. Lenny Barker throwing a perfect game would seemed impossible to anybody who ever watched him pitch because he did not have command. He had that one magnificent year and was never able to replicate it again. Sometimes people have magical seasons that they just, and it comes out of nowhere. I'm not saying that's definitely the case. I do not believe that Josh Allen is going to have as good a year as he had last year. The Dolphins are being predicted at 10 wins, basically, slightly over. Their over-under is 9. The Patriots, believe it or not, over-under is up to 9, and their prediction is to go over now that they've gotten tight end upgrades, a pass rusher in Judon, and, and the 17-game schedule.
I could see them going 9-8. But I don't see them.
10-7 is what they're saying. And, without a quarterback.
No, I don't see that at all.
I don't see that at all either. And they're going to have to do something to get a franchise quarterback in there. And the Jets are actually an over-under of 6, and they're predicted to go under. The new quarterback is presumably going to be Zach Wilson. And that is just, as Sam Darnold would tell you, it is just a thankless score. So, they can't be worse than 2-14, I guess, but they're going to be somewhere in the 4-12, somewhere in that range. In the AFC North, the over-under for the Ravens is 11. All right, and there'd be no reason why it wouldn't be. And they're saying that's a push. They're predicting an 11-6 season for the Ravens. And I think Lamar Jackson will be Lamar Jackson. The question is going to be the running game and whether they can continue to get away with the scheming that is exceedingly conservative and limiting.
Again, the signing of Zeitler will help with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, definitely they put their money into a good offensive lineman, and we can vouch for that in Cleveland. But again, at 17 games, it's just one more game and one more chance for the open field, broken field running of Lamar Jackson, to get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's incredible. Lamar Jackson's won 81% of his games since taking over as a starter. That's the best in the NFL. So you have to feel that he's going to continue to win. The Bengals over-under is 6.5, and they're being predicted over. This is really interesting. This is year 3 under Zach Taylor. And this is usually where the rubber meets the road for teams. I mean, a coach has to get to a point where he gets over the hump. And but
the team's hamstrung by Mike Brown. So, I mean.
That's right. I mean, and not only that, we saw Marvin Lewis make the playoffs, lose in the first game every year. It's very difficult to get beyond that 9-7, 10-6 Andy Dalton kind of situation. Zach Taylor has a fine young quarterback. I was just watching week 2 from 2020, the replay of the Browns and the Bengals. And really, Burrow is an accurate thrower. He really has a nice arm. He has really nice mechanics. But he was getting the shit kicked out of him even in week 2. I mean, the Browns were hitting him, on so many dropbacks. He was completing passes and getting the ball out of his hand, but he was taking a huge punishment. And they're predicting more than 6.5 wins for the Bengals. And there's a lot on the line there for a guy coming back from an ACL surgery. And they have spent money on defensive upgrades. But if they don't go somewhere around 500, Zach Taylor's gone. I'll tell you that. With Mike Brown there, he'll be gone. So, and then you have the Browns, whose over-under is 10, a 10-7 season, and the prediction is over. And they're saying they're going to win the same 11 games that they did last year. And
I could see them winning 12.
Yeah, when it gets to this, you could have a great game, you can have a letdown game. If you would have said to me the Browns were going to make the playoffs last year, I would have said, well, show me that. But again, the way we played against the Raiders was horrendous. Yet other games we played against the Titans, we look great, and that's the way every season goes. The reason that we might do a little bit better than 11 is because the Steelers over under is 9, and everyone's predicting them to go under. It's hard to imagine a 39-year-old quarterback who's trying to get rid of the ball as soon as he can, who still doesn't have a running back and has 2 of his offensive linemen going bye-bye. Seeing them being much of a player in all this.
Well, and for them, the biggest loss is going to be Pouncey because he made all the line calls. And so they're going to have to come in and have either find a guy that's still got 1 or 2 seasons left in him or draft somebody. And good luck trying to draft a center.
Right. So, yeah, I see somebody here who wants to get into the studio, and I'm too sage and wise a cow. Jimmy,
with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah, Jimmy, why don't you do this, Jimmy? Why don't you tell me your favorite Cleveland Browns story? The thing that was to you the most inspirational moment of the Browns organization. And that can buy your way onto the program. And of course, I have a feeling that that's not happening. All right. So, look, for the Browns, I 12-5, and I get it's so awkward. The 17th game, I don't like it. I know the players don't like it. There's going to be more injuries. It's going to have hit at.
On the upside, they get to play the Cardinals. And they play the Cardinals at First Energy this year. So that's why I think 12-5 is a very doable thing.
Yeah, and the other thing with the Browns in the draft, I'm going to start looking at wide receivers. And the reason I say that is OBJ is definitely, we've committed to him, but if it doesn't go the way that we want it to go for the following year, we have to be in a position to have somebody who has breakaway speed. And
with the depth, the second and third round seems to be where everybody's placing it.
Second, third round for a wide receiver, I could really see the Browns doing that. And that, again, somebody who I don't want to see some little mighty might midget guy. I really would like to see somebody who has some length to help Baker out, because sometimes Baker sails the ball a little bit up and who can really go up and get after it. The guys we have now, like Rashard Higgins, not a physical receiver, he's crafty, OBJ is a guy who can outrun people and runs sharp patterns, as is Jarvis Landry. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but runs sharp patterns. Austin Hooper, who gets open, hits the open spots and catches the ball. But I really would like to see somebody who's got some hands and physicality to go with speed. And I know that I'm probably not necessarily describing a second and third round pick, but you just don't know. That is something that the Browns need to do. And that's for the future, not for this year. But because I have a feeling that, watching OBJ play in week 2 against the Bengals, it was interesting. He caught the long touchdown pass, and everything seemed like everything was going okay, and everything went to hell in a handbasket. So another injury for him, and it would be over. And the Browns need to have somebody who they can groom, and I don't mean speed. Antonio Callaway. I don't mean that. Okay. Somebody who can catch the fucking football. All right. That's it. 7:00 and time to rock. Getting out of here. Brian, thanks for holding the fort here. And
thanks to Key for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you, Key. And I'll say that we'll be back again on Monday. We'll see anything new that happens. We're here to comment on it. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And until next time, Hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.